We are experiencing the golden age of Warhammer 40k gaming, and maybe even the golden age of Warhammer 40k itself. We have an amazing lineup of video games that are releasing in 2026 and beyond, and we have an amazing lineup of games that are continuing to receive awesome updates that continue to keep players engaged and having fun with Warhammer 40k games. Today, I've got First Tour Guardsman here with me to talk about some of these amazing new releases and existing Warhammer 40k games. FTG, the first game I want to talk about is Total War Warhammer 40k.
I guess we're starting off with the big one. Total War Warhammer 40k is probably my most anticipated game, if not just because of what it will do for the 40k franchise. I think that Total War Warhammer 40k is going to launch in a pretty okay state in terms of content. It will be the first of a trilogy. It's not going to have the 10-year backlog that Warhammer 3 does at this point. But as far as getting people into 40k, especially since it's going to be on console, I think this game is going to be incredible. I think the armor customizer looks amazing. You'll be able to play as all those unique chapters. We'll almost certainly not get legendary lords like retributors and stuff like that. So it does seem pretty damn appealing to me. It's one of my favorite types of games in general because I've been a fan of Total War since Shogun 2. I think it might be a little controversial for some of the existing Creative Assembly fans, but as far as 40k fans are concerned, I think it will hook them. I think this will be an incredibly popular game no matter what. I've seen some people say this game will not bang, and it might not bang in the minds of some players, but as far as popularity goes, I think it's going to be the biggest 40k game ever.
Oh yeah, it's got a million wish lists on Steam already, and we don't even have a release date for the game. I think that this is probably going to be coming in 2027, maybe even 2028. Probably not something that we see in 2026. I think what I'm looking forward to the most is basically seeing kind of what order they release the factions in and different legendary lords and heroes and everything. I'm kind of spoiled because Space Marines and Orcs, kind of two of my favorite factions in the entire setting, are already in the game alongside Imperial Guard. I guess the only thing that I would want to see shortly after release would be Chaos Space Marines. What about you?
I feel like I want to see something like Tyranids or Necrons, personally. I'm a huge fan of Space Marines, obviously. I also love Astra Militarum, obviously, because I'm just a big Imperial fan in general.
Your name.
But, yeah, who could have thought that First Tour Guardsman likes the Imperial Guard?
Exactly.
But as far as other factions to add in, I think Tyranids and Necrons just make a lot of sense because they're in such a forefront of the story right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in tabletop. So they're definitely going to kind of streamline those. But again, Chaos Astartes, Heretic Astartes, these are very popular in 40k, and I don't know how hard it'd be to implement those versus some other factions. So might get those pretty early, but as far as I would want to see, I definitely want to see the Necrons first. That'd be my choice.
There you go. And speaking of Necrons, obviously we're not going to get our Total War Warhammer 40k Necron fix initially, but they are going to be appearing in Dawn of War 4, which I am also extremely excited for, where I see Total War Warhammer 40k as being a much more, I guess, cozy game for me to just kind of experience Warhammer 40k in a pseudo strategy and RTS setting. Dawn of War 4 seems like it's leaning very heavily into a bunch of different RTS mechanics that are looking like they're going to be really fun to play with. One of the things that I'm really excited about for Dawn of War is not only is it going to have a ton of cinematics and cutscenes, we've already seen a lot of that so far with a ton of the kind of sneak peek trailers or reveal trailers, but it's also going to have the Last Stand mode on release, which was a game mode in Dawn War 2 that basically acts like a siege mode from Space Marine 2. It's kind of like a hero defense or survival. Is there anything you're looking forward to in particular for Dawn of War 4?
For me, I think I'm more interested in Dawn of War's story than the actual gameplay. I like RTS, don't get me wrong, but I'm a bigger fan of grand strategy, which is why Total War kind of hooks me. I like the slower pace of combat. But as far as the lion being revealed in the reveal trailer, that was a huge moment for me, mainly because I'm
Dude, it
kind of
was.
interested to see how this moves the story forward. Having a playable Primarch in game would be a pretty damn awesome thing, and having Primarchs come back to 40k in general is just a huge thing for the setting. I really hope we get to see more of that in the future. And as far as what I'm looking forward to in this game for gameplay, like you said, the Last Stand mode, I'm a big fan of siege modes and games like this in general. Even though I'm not the best at RTS games, that's going to be the one I'll probably play the most besides the campaign.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a good time. And like you said, having a Primarch appear as a playable character in a 40k game, I think this might actually be the first time that it's happened outside of maybe like Tacticus or Warforged, some other card games maybe, where you're able to just play a Primarch as a card, but to actually control one as a unit in an RTS. And maybe in the future, in Space Marine 3, you get a whole segment where you just control Gilliman or something. I don't know. Probably not, but that might be a little bit of a stretch. Another faction that Dawn of War 4 is going to have is going to be the Adeptus Mechanicus. And of course, this brings us to our next release of 2026, Mechanicus 2. And this is actually one of those games where I myself am not a tactical game player. I've never really been into like XCOM or anything like that. But because this is 40k and because I played the original Mechanicus, I'm very interested in the game's story, its graphics, the way that it portrays the many Necron, Mechanicus, and Leagues of Votann units. All looks really awesome so far. And the guns, of course. The guns all look and sound beautiful, especially the ones that are in the demo. What are you looking forward to in Mechanicus 2?
I'm a huge fan of XCOM personally, so Mechanicus 2 is just that in 40k. So I like the Adeptus Mechanicus 1. I love the AdMech faction in general, and having us fight Necrons, again, a turn-based game. Turn-based, like I said before, with grand strategy is one of my favorite types of genres, so having this, I'm looking forward to that in general, just for having any playable AdMech at all. And as far as what this game does differently from XCOM, the reason I'm bringing up XCOM just because that's like the closest thing that I can compare to Adeptus Mechanicus 1. I think that Mechanicus 1 did a great job with build variety for your different AdMech guys, and hopefully Mechanicus 2 does that a bit more in depth. And now I did play a little bit of the demo. I didn't have like a super like huge opinion on it, didn't play too much. But as far as which games I'm looking forward to, it's definitely like a top 5 for my list.
Judging by the trailers, it looks like there's going to be much more build variety in Mechanicus 2, and it looks like they're adapting more mechanics from XCOM, like destructible environments or environmental challenges in general, and putting that into the game. So it's probably going to be a lot more engaging than even the original Mechanicus was. But another game where build crafting is going to be super important that is also coming out this year is Dark Heresy. Now, I don't know if you have fired up the alpha for Dark Heresy, but anybody could play it if you purchase it on Owlcat's website, not through Steam. It is extremely fun. I love how in combat they've added this almost Fallout-style targeting system where you could target different parts of somebody's body with your weapon and to basically create like a wound on them. Or you could just go for the head if you want to go for as much damage as you can possibly get on like a sniper or something. It looks like Dark Heresy is really going to dive into and innovate CRPG combat. And just from the little bit that I've played so far, just a handful of hours really, I really like it. So I like role-playing as like an Inquisitor. It seems much more interactive with the setting than playing as like a rogue trader, where you're a little too like you're too important.
Grandiose.
You're grandiose, you know, you're too important to the grand scheme of things for the entire sector, and so it kind of takes me out of it. But just as an acolyte for an Inquisitor, you're much more boots on the ground. It's more gritty, realistic, etc., etc. I really like it, dude. Have you played the alpha at all?
I have played the Dark Heresy Alpha. I think in the case of Dark Heresy, it's one of those things where less is just more. and they're really
Yeah.
making a pretty big effort on basically lowering down the scale of the setting, making sure that the storylines they do have in the game are more fleshed out, making sure the mechanics are there. I think they learned from Baldur's Gate 3 that you don't need to have like the most excessive, like expansive galaxy map ever. It's supposed to take place on one planet. You're just playing as one, Inquisitor going through with the Inquisition. You follow on the clues. That gives the player a direct way to interact with the game world. And also, Inquisitors, like Rogue Traders, are a great option because they're kind of above the law in a lot of cases. It's
Yep.
really hard in a 40k setting for a CRPG to be like, an Astrum Militarum guardsman, because there are so many regulations to the Imperium that if you're just like a grunt, there's not much you can actually do as a character. So having a larger than life character like this is good, but we did scale back a bit from a Rogue Trader. Though I do think Rogue Traders are a great option too, because having Xenos companions is like one of the major draws of them, and they definitely try to bring that back here with things like the Ogryn and the Eldari will have.
Yeah, and the Kroot. We're gonna have a
The
Kroot
Kroot.
companion as well. Yeah, basically someone from a drag from the Tau Empire, so to speak. But pivoting completely to just a kind of weird genre, Warhammer 40k is getting like a Survivor game. Like Warhammer Survivors, not only 40k but Age of Sigmar as well. It's going to be coming out for PC, I believe this year, and I'm pretty excited because I'm a huge fan of Vampire Survivors by, I believe you pronounce their company Pinnacle, and they've basically kind of given their stamp of approval onto this game as well, for these developers, Auroch Digital or Auroch Studios, who are the same developers as Boltgun and Boltgun 2. So Warhammer Survivors and Boltgun 2. I'm excited. I'm probably gonna play Warhammer Survivors more than Boltgun 2. Boltgun 2 is probably gonna be like I play through it once or twice for the story, because boomer shooters aren't really my thing. But Survivor games and roguelites, definitely up my alley.
As far as Warhammer Survivors is concerned for me, I like roguelites. I'm not the biggest fan of like this genre of roguelite. It's gonna be pretty fun. I doubt I'll play it that much. Boltgun 2, I'll probably pick up a little bit, but like neither of these really drew me in. I know some Sister of Battle fans are like huge, proponents. Like Boltgun 2 is gonna be the best game ever, but that's just always how the Sister of Battle fans be. But as far as Warhammer Survivors goes, I saw the trailer for this. I was like, looks cool. Roguelite could be pretty fun, but I doubt I'll play it for too long of a period of time if I play it at all.
Yeah, what they really need to do is they need to port this over to mobile ASAP. Because right now, when it comes to Warhammer 40k, or I guess even Age of Sigmar mobile games, your options are pretty limited to basically Tacticus and then a bunch of other like card games and stuff, which aren't too interactive. Like, I want to actually get in, control a character, and play the game, actually do things on the screen. You don't really get that with a tactical game or with a card game, so they really got to get it over to mobile. And with Boltgun 2, what I'm hoping is, since the game is going to release with at least 2 characters, I hope we get more characters in future DLCs, because Boltgun did have its own DLC that released like a completely different like side story with new levels, demons, etc., but you didn't get a new character. But since they're adding a Sister of Battle into Boltgun 2, maybe it opens up the door for more characters and more playstyles in the game, which might make the whole genre more appealing for me. We'll see. But that's pretty much everything for our new releases in 2026 and beyond, with the exception of something like Space Marine 3, which everyone knows is on the horizon. And that brings us to the games that are currently being updated with new and exciting content, starting out with, of course, Space Marine 2, which is getting updated with the Tech Marine in the first quarter of the year here. What do you think about the Tech Marine and the moves that Space Marine 2 is making this year, FTG?
I think that Tech Marine is going to be the biggest update for Space Marine 2. It's the update I've been looking forward to the most. I think that new classes in horde shooters like this just do so much for the fundamental gameplay loops. They open up new team comps, new ways to synergize with your teammates, and generally, I just think that it's the most fun for new players because having more classes is just like the leveling experience in Space Marine 2 especially is one of the biggest parts of quote-unquote content. So having that extended a bit more will keep player retention as well, and overall, we're also getting 3 new heroic weapons in this patch on top of a brand new operation that's going to feature both Chaos and Tyranid. So I think it's to do a lot for the game. And as far as the future of the game is concerned, we talked about this a little bit before off the video, which was the potential of a year 3 for Space Marine 2, which I think is like guaranteed at this point.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that Space Marine 2 will continue to get updates as it matures. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. And I think they've got a good formula with their releases right now. If they keep releasing classes, heroic weapon variants, and operations, then I think that their current player base is going to be very happy, and they're going to be able to attract more and more players as people look at the game and they go, oh yeah, like 20 replayable operations with all this gear to grind for? Like, yeah, sign me up. The other game that is also kind of relying on releasing new classes for content, Warhammer 40k Darktide. You and I both love Darktide. We have a ton of hours in it, and we've got some hints on what the next class is going to be. We got, I'll flash it up on the screen, but there's an internal kind of code name that Fat Shark is referring to this new class as, and I anticipate that we'll probably get a teaser before the Warhammer Skulls 2026 event, and then a full reveal at Warhammer Skulls, because that just worked for the Arbitrator so well, with the release of the class happening in June, July timeframe. FTG, what do you think this new class is going to be, and do you even think that Darktide needs a new class? We did just get 2 new classes last year, after all.
But like I said with Space Marine 2, I think that new classes are just amazing for horde shooters. As long as they're well made, a new class is like the best possible thing as long as the fundamental gameplay mechanics are there and there's enough content to actually play through on the class. And in the case of Darktide, I think that Darktide's maps are pretty excellent. You know, we just had the No Man's Land one that released with Hive Scum.
Yeah.
I do think the Hive Scum maybe missed the mark a bit, so a new class could do a lot for the game. But Arbides was super popular on launch, and people are really waiting for things like AdMech. As far as which classes will be, you know, I haven't really theorized on this too much, but my personal hope for Darktide is that we do actually go back to what Fat Shark initially said prior to the launch of the game, so that we're going to be getting a new class per quarter, and it seems like we are now following that dateline, or you know, that timeline. So having that in the game would be a pretty good thing, and I hope that we actually go forward making sure we follow that in the future, just because more classes are good for Darktide. And I think that Fat Shark especially is really good at creating Darktide classes and creating good perk trees, creating good weapon synergies. And even though Hive Scum maybe missed the mark in my opinion, I think that new classes for the game are just the best possible option at this point in its life cycle.
Yeah, I really like the way that Hive Scum plays. I'm just not a huge fan of the theme behind the Hive Scum.
Yeah.
The thing that I really want to see in Darktide is like Gene Stealer cults or Chaos Demons or just more enemy variety in general. It seems like Space Marine 2 almost artificially boosted this when they added the stratagem to the game, where you're able to fight both enemy factions on a map or the opposite enemy faction on a map at any given time. That is probably my favorite stratagem, just because I love variety. I love seeing variety and in my general day-to-day, you know, gaming session. So I think that it's really working out for them, and having a new enemy faction in Darktide would go really hard. And speaking of new stuff, new factions, Rogue Trader also still being updated. Its next DLC is going to focus very heavily on endgame systems, which is awesome because right now Act 5 in Rogue Trader is probably one of the more empty acts of, I think, any CRPG that Owlcat has worked on. And then you compare like Act 3 Baldur's Gate 3 to Act 5 Rogue Trader. Like, one is filled with tons of content, and then the other is kind of just a conclusion for the game. It's really meant to be winding everything down. So it's going to be awesome to have a ton of end game options, but there is one thing that the next DLC isn't releasing, and I believe it's an archetype. I don't think they're going to be releasing an archetype, which is kind of an interesting choice, because, you know, we just got done talking about how adding new classes to games in general is a good way to drive engagement. Were you tracking this, FTG? You know that they're not adding a new class in the next DLC for Rogue Trader?
I think Revan told me there's going to be no new archetype, but I was sold on Tracing the Infinite DLC personally because I like Necrons, I like Tracing the Infinite, I like the Fulgrim clone. I hope we get to see that in game.
Oh, that'd be amazing!
Or something.
That'd be amazing.
But,
hey,
yeah.
we got Primarchs appearing in Dawn of War 4, so hey, anything's possible here. We might see the Fulgrim clone in Rogue Trader. That would actually be freaking huge, dude.
An entire side quest for the Fulgrim clone. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh
I think that it could be Rogue Trader's best because usually in CRPGs, the thing I hate the most is when you have these endgame builds, you finally built your character, and you have nothing to fight, or like you get like the endgame items. There are some items in Rogue Trader, that's one of the finale act for people that haven't played it, that you get one of the best plasma guns you can get in the game, like 5 feet before the final boss.
The final boss,
which is just hilarious to me. Like, why are they doing? I don't know who designed it that way, but Owlcat makes great CRPGs, but their balance, or I should say their placement of their acts, sometimes they shoot a little too far, and people, the finale acts just kind of suffer for it. So hopefully this addresses that, and I am sold on Necrons regardless, but Necrons are in Rogue Trader already. They're pretty fun to fight, but hopefully this expands that into a proper system and proper finale.
Absolutely. There are tons of Warhammer 40k games already out in every single genre. Let us know down in the comments what you would like to see as like the next big Warhammer 40k game. I want to see like a Battlefield or Battlefront style Warhammer 40k game. I think it's time. I think it's time that a studio carries that mantle. FTG, do you have anything that you want to add?
I would say other ones I'm looking forward to the most. I want new classes in Darktide, new classes in Space Marine 2 Beyond Tech Marine. Hopefully Rogue Trader's DLC bangs. And as far as the brand new games that are coming up, Total War Warhammer 40k, I mean, it's just going to be the crescendo for gaming in 40k as far as I'm concerned until we get, like, the finale of the entire trilogy that they make. Because I just feel like Warhammer 40k Total War is going to pull in the most players to the entire franchise, not just the game.
I'm excited for people to experience the majesty of Total War Warhammer 40k, because my entry point into the franchise was Dawn of War, and when I was a kid, even something as small as Dawn of War was magical to me. So I can't even imagine what it's going to be like when someone is playing Total War Warhammer 40k 3 and they open up the menu of all the factions and playable legendary lords, and it's like, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages of all sorts of different factions and characters. It's honestly going to be pretty amazing. But FTG, thank you so much for joining me today. Guys, if you're not already subscribed to him, head over to First Tour Guardsman's channel and subscribe to him. He makes a ton of amazing content. As always, I appreciate your viewership. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.
The Emperor protects.